Hey loves, just got done with the gym, so my hair is a little messy. But I wanted to touch on the topic of shame. My husband walked in today when I was listening to Brene Brown's book, The Power of Vulnerability. And she said people judge where they're most vulnerable to shame. So when people make judgments in other people, it's because they're hiding their own shame. So it's misdirected shame. I like to think of shame as a vampire. This way people can not take it personally, because shame triggers when you talk about shame, you trigger other people's shame. And so it's really one of those things that you have to talk in metaphoric ways. So let's think of shame as a vampire. And this is an epidemic worldwide. Okay? People have shame and they have toxic shame or guilt and shame. The difference is between shame and toxic shame would be, and shame and guilt are kind of the same thing, toxic shame, and just depending on what books you read or whatever. Toxic shame is, okay, so let me identify shame real quick. Shame or guilt would be like hurting someone, realizing that's not what your intentions were, that's not who you want to be, walking up to them and say, hey, I am so sorry, I made a mistake, I'm human, and I hope you can forgive me. So that would be shame or guilt, saying, I don't want to be this person, I'm really, really sorry, I'm human, I make mistakes too. Toxic shame is when they internalize it as, I am a mistake. And a lot of kids pick up toxic shame because when they spill that milk, their parents are saying, you idiot, you're such a mistake. And so they internalize, I am a mistake, something's wrong with me, I'm not enough. And so if you get too much shame, you actually become a vampire, you become narcissistic. A true narcissist is a true vampire walking on earth. And I'm going to explain this in a way so that you can understand the sensations and the feelings of what happens if you're in shame, and how to kill shame, how to slay the vampire inside of you. So when you're bit by shame, it hurts. Think about the movies. When they're bit by shame, they're in agonizing pain. They're like, ah, they're being bit by shame is excruciating. It's terribly painful, okay? And it burns. A lot of times it creates a very burning sensation, or it's very like embarrassing and you pull back. Embarrassment is more hiding shame, but it's just excruciating. Again, burning is also hiding shame. Anytime the ego touches shame, it burns, because the ego doesn't like to feel shame, okay? Because then it feels bad or something's wrong with it. So it hurts. Someone has murdered you. Your trust is broken. Usually shame is caused because someone you trusted has murdered a part of you. They have put it down, or a part of you dies because somebody dies, and you couldn't save them. It can happen from a traumatic experience. It can happen because somebody put you down. It could happen because somebody embarrassed you. Shame can be created in a lot of different ways, but something happened that broke your trust, and that could be, you feel like God broke your trust because they took somebody you love, but you're in excruciating pain. You've been betrayed. A part of you has been murdered. But when you come out of this, you feel different, like something is wrong with you. You feel like hiding in the background of your life. You feel like you're pulling away from others. You become thirsty. And you want to drink blood. But what is blood? Blood is something that used to make us feel disgusted, like that was gross. It wasn't appealing at all. But when you're in toxic shame, you become an addict. So you start doing things like, let's say you were once a very moral person, but you get into shame and toxic shame, and you become a sex addict. So you start behaving in a way that you crave it. You become thirsty for that blood, for that thing that you once repulsed you. We feel like we're starving to death. Like you feel like you can never get enough. Your heart feels like it's constantly aching. Like, if you ever just been like in so much pain in your heart, it feels like it's shutting down and it hurts, and so you're constantly trying to get something to take away the pain. We stop feeling, and we start feeling hollow and dead inside. Like a part of us is dying. We become scared of people. We're terrified they're going to find out our secrets. We stop having empathy for others. In fact, when other people try to expose their shame or talk about their stories, we hiss at them because it brings up our own shame. And so it exposes the vampire within us. And so we don't like other people talking about things that embarrass us or talking about their shame because it exposes our shame. And so like a vampire who's, their rule is you can't tell anybody else you're a vampire. You can't expose your shame. You can't tell anybody there's something wrong with you. You can't say something's wrong or you're going to expose everybody else's what's going on. Nobody wants to face their own shame. So vampires aren't supposed to tell other people they're vampires. They're supposed to hide from people. They're supposed to keep in the shadows. They're not supposed to expose themselves to the light. If you try to expose yourself to light, it's outlawed. Like if you try to expose yourself to light, think about Twilight. They're gonna murder you if you try to expose their culture, right? Vampires start hurting other people because they hurt. So they get a high off of causing pain in other people. So because we become a predator. And again, there's different levels of vampires in the sense that you can start the transition and you can correct it and you come back to life, or there's people that are so consumed by it they go to the extreme of becoming the narcissist, the Dracula that feeds off other people, who is consumed with hate, who's consumed with all these things. Because why are they consumed with hate? Because they think they're a monster. They think they're bad. They think they're evil, and so they get their highs from causing other people pain because they're in so much pain that they've literally had to shut their feelings and their humanity off. Okay, so how do we slay the vampire within us? The shame. We expose our shame to the light. We allow it to burn through us. So we allow that. When you expose yourself to light as a vampire, it hurts, and you like, it just like burns off the old you. Don't cower back into the shadows. Stay in your light. Tell your story, but make sure you're telling it to people that can have empathy and compassion, because that's how you heal heal a monster, is you have compassion and empathy for it. And the reason people have toxic shame is because they don't have compassion and empathy for themselves. They can't forgive themselves for making mistakes because they believe they are a mistake. Okay? So you talk about it with people that can have empathy and compassion for you. And people that have toxic shame are not going to be able to listen to you. People that are consumed by shame are not going to be able to hear you. I was raped, and I would try to talk to my husband about it, and it would trigger his own shame so bad because he felt perhaps that he wasn't a good enough provider. You know, I don't know. He had shame around it, and so he wouldn't hear me, and he would attack me anytime I tried to tell my story. So find somebody who can understand you and have empathy for you and compassion for you, so that you can start being more comfortable in the light and showing and telling your story. That's how you shift shame. How else do we kill a vampire? We stake it. So when let's say your shame started when you're like my shame started, some of my shame started when my daughter died. Like I couldn't save her. Like I felt like maybe I wasn't a good enough mother. Maybe if I'd done this, maybe I've done that. And my heart chakra shut down. And so it hurt all the time. And the only way I could feel anything is if I was like in crisis mode or helping people. And I became addicted to the high, like that thirst, the high of helping others and feeling that dopamine rush. My addiction was helping others, but some people's addiction, again, would go to sex addiction or drugs or smoking or alcohol or Facebook, and we're just constantly trying to get some kind of high to feel alive again. So we get addicted to the adrenaline, the dopamine rush versus the oxytocin, and the reason why is because our heart chakra is closed off. And so to kill a vampire, to kill the vampire inside of us, we actually have to stake ourselves and open up that heart chakra. We have to be able to feel our emotions again, feel and open up our humanity again, start being able to have empathy and compassion for other people. For instance, this is a religious thing, because I think religions don't even understand what they're really doing, but they're not giving people empathy. First, they're not letting people go into their darkness, so they can't have empathy, because empathy means being able to sit with somebody in the darkness, because you know what that feels like. You've been there, and you say, me too. But at the same time, sometimes you haven't experienced something as traumatic. Maybe you haven't experienced what somebody's been through, but at the same time, instead of saying, well, if you were reading your scriptures, this wouldn't have happened. If you were paying your tithing, this wouldn't happen. Instead, it would be saying, you know what? I can understand that would be really, really difficult. I've never been there, but I can understand if I was in your circumstances, how that would feel. And trying to put yourself into that person's shoes. Okay? So when you start turning on your humanity again, and you start having empathy for other people instead of trying to, I told you so, that kind of stuff. Or, your child comes home and they're complaining about their day, instead of saying, well, suck it up, because, there's a lot more stuff. Trust me, I've done that too. We all do it at some points, where we just don't have any ability to relate to another person in their perspective. But turning on our humanity kills the vampire inside of us. It opens us back up. What are some other things so garlic? Start feeding ourselves garlic. What is garlic symbolic of? Things that are good for us. We may not want to do it, like working out. We may not want to do it, like eating right. We may not want to, like, take care of ourselves, but starting to be eating that garlic, those things that are good for our immunity, those are things that are good for, and it may stink. Going to the gym may stink at first, but it's self-love practices. Self-love practices will help you transition the vampire out of you, because self-loving, when you fall in love with yourself, you can't hate the monster inside of you. You have compassion and love for the monster. Therefore, the monster ceases to be. What you resist persists. When you find acceptance for the monster and what you did, when you're able to have compassion for yourself and forgive yourself at your darkest level, then you're able to start integrating the vampire, and the vampire basically starts getting blood back in its veins and pulsing. You start feeling alive again. And a lot of it is taking that garlic, that daily garlic, doing those daily things that are good for you, whether you want to do them or not. So it's self-love practices. And then how else do you kill a vampire? You shoot yourself with silver. And what is silver symbolic of? So it's constantly refining yourself to get rid of the impurities, the things that make you feel like you're less than, the things that make you feel like you're not enough. So you're constantly always striving to be your best self. You're always striving to not... What I want to get away from is that you have to look a certain way to be good enough. But taking care of your body, taking care of yourself, taking care of your mind, taking care of your soul, taking care of your finances, doing the things constantly that refining out the things that make you feel dirty, that make you feel impure. So if you're having a lot of negative thoughts, go in and refining those thoughts. Removing them and replacing them with better ones. If you have belief systems that are not serving you, like the belief system that you're a bad person if you have sex with other people, if you end up having sex with somebody, you're gonna have this shame and this guilt and all this stuff. And so you either have to not do that thing, or you have to remove that belief system so that you can live the authentic life that you want to be living. Especially if you have this need to have connection with other human beings and the sexual connection, but you believe sex is bad, you're going to be shaming that. So by refining that belief system and creating a belief system that is more beneficial to you, like it's okay to have sex with people that I love, that I want to connect with, or whatever you want to put in there, that sex is a good thing, sex is awesome, sex is a great thing. We're constantly refining the belief systems. We're shooting ourselves with silver. We're constantly refining our things that make us feel like we're unworthy, or making us feel like we're impure. So it's pulling out the impurities within our mind and our belief systems so that we can constantly show up for our lives, live our lives to the fullest, truly live, instead of being these vampires in this world that pull back and hide in our lives. So that's just a metaphor of shame that I like to use that helps me understand, why am I feeling this way? And so when I start feeling that burning sensation and I want to attack because my shame's starting to come out and somebody's triggered my shame, it's awesome. It's an awesome feeling. The first couple times it's a little bit uncomfortable, but as soon as I get that burning, I just sit there and I just let it burn. Woo! And it's so cool. And I've done shaming, now that I've understood shame, and I released all my shame, and I talked about the things that made me feel like I was less than, and I got all that out. My life is transitioning because now I can start attracting what I want because now I'm worthy of it. Now I feel worthy of it. I was always worthy of it, but I didn't feel worthy because I felt like a vampire. I felt like I was dying, right? I was addicted to other people making me feel good about myself because I didn't feel good about myself. And so healing this vampire within you really does bring you back to life, and it gives you the ability to start attracting and manifesting the life you truly want. A lot of people will talk to me about, manifestation, the secret doesn't work for me. And I'm not saying that the secret is the all be all, but there's a lot of truth inside of it. But what they're forgetting to tell you is if you got shame and you have these belief systems of unworthiness and things like that, you have to go clear them out. You have to get it out so that you can actually start attracting and manifesting what you want. But a vampire is always going to be miserable. It's always going to outlive the loves. It's always going to watch everything it loves die around it. So you're going to be constantly sabotaging your happiness if you still have this shame and the vampire inside of you. You gotta bring it to light, and you've got to kill it. Or slay your own vampire. And all of us got one. All of us got a little bit of that vampire. And the people that don't have the vampire are the people that are shining in this world. They're the people that are making a difference. They're the people that are living their truth and living authentically and moving through life in a way that inspires others. So thanks for listening. You have a fantastic day. Hope this helps, and we'll talk to you soon.